Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people around the world who are improving the lives of others. We're part of Rotary International, 1.2 million people in 36,000 clubs dedicated to the idea of service above self. That for you who are in Rotary and you who are yet to become Rotarians, that joy and meaning that is a part of engaging in service and improving the lives of others is something that we love devoting our time and energy to. Today, we're going to be talking with Tiffany Larson of Days for Girls. She is the CEO, and she's going to tell us about the issues of equity and dignity and health that are a part of the very interesting work that they are doing. If you are interested in reading her full bio, you can pause this recording. You might be finding this on our YouTube page. You might be finding it on a podcast page, or you might be catching it on our Rotary page itself. SiliconValleyRotary.com is our site, and you can find the easy way to get there by going to rotary.cool. So feel free to pause, read the entire bio, and come back. But Tiffany, we are so excited to have you speaking to us. Welcome to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley.
Thank you so much for this introduction. It's so great to be here with you. I'm grateful for the opportunity. And yeah, Days for Girls has actually enjoyed a really long history of partnering with Rotarians and Rotary. And we're so grateful, huge fans of Rotary, and would love that to continue for many years to come. I wanted to start my comments today with introducing you. Can you see my screen? To a girl named Alice. And Alice is from Nakuru, Kenya. And she happened to be at school on the day that she started her period for the first time. She did not know what was happening. She didn't know what a period was. She realized that she was bleeding and that it had bled through the back of her skirt. And she sat there frozen at her desk, not knowing what to do. Unfortunately, at that moment, her teacher called on her to come to the board to participate in class. And so she was forced with a decision of, do I listen to my teacher, go forward? Everyone in the class is going to laugh at me, or do I stay seated? That day she chose to stay seated. And that day she was slapped across the face by her teacher. That began many years of Alice trying unsuccessfully to manage her menstrual experience and to continue to do all the things that she wanted and needed to do in life. She said that she would use oftentimes proxy products to manage her menstrual experience, such as strips of cloth or mattress stuffing or leaves. As she said, sometimes she would, even when she was at school and hadn't anticipated starting her period, she would tear the pages out of her textbooks. She even, on the very day of the national exam for Kenya, which is very pivotal for students in Kenya, she started her period that day. And anyone that knows Alice knows she's absolutely brilliant, but she wasn't able to concentrate and she failed the national exam. For Alice, starting her period created a barrier to her living the life that she wanted to live. And unfortunately, Alice's story isn't unique. According to the UN, 500 million women and girls worldwide lack access to what they need to take care of their period each month with health, safety, and dignity, which is 25% of women of reproductive age. Just take a moment to let that sink in. 25% of women globally. Women on average will menstruate 5 days each month, which is about 3,000 days in a girl's lifetime. And if you're doing the math, that is 8 years of a girl's life. Menstruation creates such a significant barrier to gender equity that the World Health Organization has called for this issue to be framed as a human right issue rather than a hygiene issue. Menstruation impacts girls all around the world, and there are different cultural practices that happen in various parts of the world that impact that whole picture and sometimes make the situation even more significant. In Nepal, where Days for Girls does a lot of work, there is a cultural practice called chapati, which is where girls are considered unclean and impure while they're on their period, and they can't be with their families or they'll cast ill will and bad fortune on their families. So for 5 days a month, they are needing to stay in menstrual huts that are away from their families. This can look like a variety of things, but they are not able to be with their families. I was just in Nepal a couple months ago. And while we were there in Western Nepal, we were able to do some Days for Girls programming, which I'll talk about what that looks like here in a second. But we were able to meet with a school. Over on the right, you'll see that we're doing Days for Girls programming. And we were able, as a part of that, to talk to quite a few of the girls individually to hear about their experiences. And several of them shared with us that they had been practicing chapati before Days for Girls arrived. Over on the left, you'll see two particular girls. The girl on the right is named Rabina, and the girl on the left is named Prinju. They're best friends and just sassy 15 and 16-year-old girls, the most beautiful girls. And they were sharing with us that they had been practicing chapati. And in the course of talking to us, they said, do you want to come back to our houses so you can see our menstrual huts? So if you look at this girl on the right, and the Rabina, over on the right is her menstrual hut. This is where she stays for over 5 days each month. It gets very cold in Western Nepal. This is completely exposed to the elements, to animals. Her best friend, Prinju, her menstrual hut is over on the left. They look all different kinds, but I'll never forget standing with Rabina, the girl on the right where I was taking this photo, and her just saying, without even emotion, the dogs can go in the house, the goats can go in the house, but I can't go in the house. This is the work that Days for Girls is working to address. And we'll talk some more about this in a minute. It's working and it's successfully reaching these girls in the ways that are needed. In Kenya, Days for Girls does a lot of work. And in particular in Kenya, Western Western Kenya, the data shows that 65% of women and girls do not have the financial resources to purchase monthly disposable pads. This leads to a practice in Eastern Africa where girls are coerced to engage in transactional sex in exchange for menstrual products. The data shows that 2 out of 3 girls in Kenya receive pads from their sexual partner, which puts girls in a lot of danger for a variety of reasons, from unwanted pregnancy, sexual violence, diseases, etc. And when we're talking about this issue, which you call period poverty globally, or addressing menstrual inequity, it's not just a lack of products. It's looking at the whole experience of a girl and the ways that is impacting her life. So it can include menstrual products. It's also looking at safe and private bathrooms. It's addressing the stigma and the shame surrounding menstruation and a lot of misinformation. So doing menstrual health education and including disposable facilities for menstrual products. Oftentimes when people hear about this issue for the first time, especially those that are in high-income countries, the thought is, oh, that's an issue over there in low-income countries. But the reality is that this is a pervasive issue impacting girls all over the world. These are just a few data points from the United States. Over 1 in 3 people with periods say that they or their family have struggled to afford menstrual products. 40% of US teens have worn products for longer than recommended, which causes infections. 1 in 3 people with periods report having missed work, school, or similar events due to a lack of access to menstrual products. So we've talked a lot about the issue. Since 2008, Days for Girls International has been working to create a world where periods no longer hold women and girls back from pursuing their goals, achieving their dreams. And Days for Girls in particular is trying to work to not just put a Band-Aid on this issue. We are working to get to the root of the issue and to create systemic, generational change that affects, and it will impact women and girls positively for generations. So first, I wanted to share with you about the Days for Girls washable pad. We throughout our programming are focused on ensuring that girls have access to products that they need that will be healthy and safe and will be what they need. This product takes very little water to wash. It dries quickly. It is a patented product that has been through over 30 iterations since 2008, over and over, improved by feedback from the girls who are using the product. The whole product itself will it costs about $15 to make, but the equity that it provides is priceless. This is a solution that a girl can count on month after month for on average 2 to 3 years. I'm very happy to share that we have now reached 3.7 million women and girls in 145 countries and counting. It keeps going up by the day. And as I shared, we're not just about getting girls access to products. We're really looking to systemically address the issues that are causing these inequities through making sure that we support women and girls through the whole life cycle of the menstrual experience and showing up to support women and girls where there are issues. We have programming that focuses on period positive schools. We have programming focused on period positive workplaces. We focus on supporting new mothers with maternal well-being and postpartum care programs. And then as well, we focus on providing support during times of crisis for refugee and disaster response. We find that oftentimes that during a crisis, the specific needs of women and girls can be overlooked and forgotten. And so Days for Girls is working to address that. In addition, as I've been saying throughout this, we're really looking to look at the whole and in a holistic way address this. And we know that to effectively do that, we need to make sure that men and boys are educated. A core part of our programming is our Men Who Know curriculum. And this photo is being taught by one of our amazing educators in Lao. And in this curriculum, not only are men and boys taught the facts and the truth about what is happening, dispelling shame and stigma, just as we do for the girls, but also leading community-led, culturally appropriate conversations about how men and boys can best support the women in their lives. A core part, so we talked a lot about what Days for Girls does, but the how of how we do it is actually a quite unique approach. Days for Girls programming is really focused on local leadership, that we see local leaders as the experts. We have worked in 145 countries. However, that is customized to the country that we're working in by local leaders that are intimately familiar with the cultural context, the particular shame and stigma that is experienced there, the way that that needs to be approached, the way to work with families and community leaders to best engage and to best fix things again at that root issue. A core part of our work with local leaders is the opportunity for local leaders to get involved in the production of our Days for Girls pads. We have a social enterprise program where we are able to support local leaders to start small businesses in their communities that is a Days for Girls business. They become licensed to do the Days for Girls programming, and as a part of that receive business training, and then are able to sew and sell the Days for Girls product, teach the Days for Girls menstrual health education, and do advocacy both at the local and the country level to raise awareness about this issue and really be seen as the experts in their community. This market-based approach is not only putting the solution in the hands of local people, but it's also ensuring that communities are investing in this and have an opportunity to be able to invest in this right in their own communities. Days for Girls has social enterprises in 28 countries, and I am happy to share that this program has created job opportunities for 451 people. 85% are women, and not only is it creating those jobs, it has reached over 1.2 million women and girls with the menstrual health solutions that they're needing, which is absolutely incredible. Through this social enterprise program, girls like Alice, who we talked about, and I told her story at the very beginning, are able to take their negative experiences that they personally have had with menstruation and to switch the script so that it is now their passion, their purpose, and their business. That they're not only able to reach girls in their community with menstrual health solutions, but they're able to create job opportunities for people also in their community. Alice, since 2008, has been running the Days for Girls and led the Days for Girls Smiled Star Enterprise in Nakuru, Kenya. And there is no one more passionate than Alice at ensuring that no girls in her community will experience what she did as a girl. No one. She is so passionate to make sure that the girls are reached. These are women that work at the Smile Star Enterprise under Alice's leadership. Alice has reached over 80,000 girls in her community, employs 30 people, 24 of which are women. And this work is amplified by over 12,000 volunteers that are located throughout the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries. And this work is all of these people standing up and saying menstruation matters. This is an issue that needs to be addressed. And they are helping to sew the products. Oftentimes, and that through this programming, we are able to reach girls all over the world through our disaster and refugee response. Through working with partners, in the last several years, we've been able to reach girls through this program in Ukraine, Morocco, Syria, Gaza, and many, many more. There are a lot of really difficult problems in the world. There really is. But this actually doesn't need to be one of them. This is something that we can tackle in our lifetime. I am so grateful for the opportunity to share these comments with you today and to be here. I'm grateful again for Rotary supporting Days for Girls through the years, and really am grateful for Rotary stepping up to say that they are a part of the solution, because this is something that we can tackle in our lifetime. Thank you.
Fantastic, Tiffany. Awesome. I am excited for us to explore this in more detail. I'm seeing a lot of love across the group. I want to introduce the group. So this is the crowd that we've got on our recording from our club. Terry Schinkel here in California, our club secretary. In Houston, Texas, Roy Olson, and best friend of Gus, who often joins us. In Catalina Island, we have Ernie Rodriguez. That's here in California. In California, we've got Nick Lagarde. And in Italy, we've got Cecilia Babkirk, our treasurer. Joining us as well today are Victoria Grieshmuller from Hungary and Terry Lynn Stone from Canada. My name is Rushton. I'm in the Bay Area of Northern California and excited to jump into this. And where I'd like to start is actually with one of our guests. Terry Lynn, you are the reason that we connected with Tiffany, and I'd like you to explain the connection that allowed this to happen.
Well, I'm a longtime Rotarian, and I had come to Dates for Girls through Rotary, and we had a place in the House of Friendship at the Rotary International Conference that recently took place in Calgary. And somebody passing by picked up one of my cards, having seen what we do, and brought it to you, Rushton, I understand, and that brought us there.
And that's a thanks to Lisa, one of our intrepid members who was part of the team from our club at the most recent international convention. So I am just in that kind of, where do we start with all of the wonderful questions we've got? I will start with one from Ernie. He asks about how you expand into a new country. So a little bit about Tiffany, like just what are the approach? Do you start with teachers? Do you start with communities and community leaders, experts? How does it work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's actually a very holistic question. We have to really look at the whole menstrual health landscape of what the current need is there, what the current laws are in place. We're looking at things like import fees, tax exemptions that we're able to get or not get, that makes the products more affordable. There's certain countries that the governments are more friendly to washable products, and certain countries that are less so. And we're looking at all of those factors. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that we look at. When we actually start in different countries, we'll often start working with a partner and do a pilot project first, and make sure we're really looking at the data on all of it, looking at the baseline data, and then looking at the improvements that were made through our programming. And then we intentionally and very strategically grow from there. Oftentimes we are going where, obviously with the need being so pervasive around the globe, and with very limited resources from a nonprofit level, we have to be very intentional about where we're going to be which levers will get us the biggest impact, the fastest, and with the limited amount of resources that we have. So yeah, really great question. And it's kind of a whole bag of things.
Well, there's so many stories that you were able to pack into your presentation, and let's work with some of those pieces as well. You talked about what's happening in Nepal, and Terry was asking about how your work has affected how communities use or don't use the menstrual hut. Has that practice changed in some way? I mean, how have you guys approached that in order to be respectful of cultural norms, but also cognizant of the need to protect girls in terms of their education and otherwise?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think that this question goes to the heart of why this is not just a menstrual product issue, that the education and the local leaders are such an important aspect of this. And so you hit the nail on the head from the question that education is a critical piece. And then also it's, when we go into new communities, we're going in very intentionally and carefully. This is led by incredible Nepali women at our Nepal office that know the best way to approach things. And so they're first going in and getting all the approvals at the community and government level, working with the leaders of the particular community, getting their buy-in. There's a lot of community circles and discussions that happen where we discuss basically what we're going to teach before we go right into the schools and teach the girls that, are their girls. And so getting their buy-in, oftentimes then we'll have community leaders that come to the distributions themselves and speak on behalf of the work that we're doing to support. When I was in Nepal, that happened multiple times, and it makes it so, you have that stamp of approval. It really gives additional validity to this is not just something new and different. Do we need to be worried about it, but that it's being, more accepted, but also in continued engagement. This is not, we're wanting to have long-term relationship with these communities and not just a stop and drop, that we're there and we're, because what we actually find is that the grandmothers end up being a really big piece to this. They're holding those cultural components, and they're actually the hardest to change the perceptions. And so having, community, and oftentimes the solution that we find is those community circles where we talk about the education. And then when they're realizing that, just the realities, the facts of this is menstruation, this is how this works, this is what this is, then we can engage in conversations. So why do we need to be in a menstrual hut? And we're not coming in and telling them you're wrong, you need to change this, but we're just generating those grassroots conversations so that they come to those decisions by their left, because they ultimately want the solution to be in the hands of the very local community, not just at the Nepal level, but right in that community, because that's where it will happen the most. Interestingly enough, I'll just add one additional thing. Potty huts are actually outlawed. They are against the law in Nepal. And the government has outlawed them and actually come through and torn down a lot of the menstrual huts. And because it's a behavioral change issue, then they just get annoyed and rebuild them. It's actually made it more challenging to address the issue because they're a little more hesitant to say that they're doing it because it's against the law. And so it just goes again to this really needs to be handled delicately and at the very grassroots level to make the long-term change that's needed.
Wow. So I'm going to combine a question that Victoria has with one that I have, because I was really intrigued at how prominent the issue of affordability is for so many families all over the world. The 1 in 3 that you mentioned via the YouGov survey here in the United States was shocking. And so when we think about Days for Girls doing their work, the kits that you create, are those given, sold, both based on some kind of system? How do you add complexity or address complexity in settings around issues of affordability?
Such a good question. And I'm going to give you a couple different answers that create the whole picture. So first, I just want to say that any kits that are distributed from our volunteers that are donated kits, those are all 100% donated and are never sold. Just want to put that, don't want to create any confusion there. For our social enterprise program and the products that are made by those local businesses, there's a variety of things. They are doing women to women sales in their community. And we actually have 4 different combination of products that get progressively less and less expensive because there's a local access point. They can start with something smaller and then build up to a complete kit over time. That's an option if it's right there in your own community. So that's one item. We also do a lot of partnering with other nonprofits and governments, and that then the funding comes, that ultimately the girls are receiving a donated kit, but it's being paid for locally by local nonprofits or governments. And that's one of the things that we're doing is we're doing a lot of advocacy work, even at the government level and we've done this successfully in several countries where then there is a budget line items that, here's some for uniforms. Let's also add in for a Days for Girls kit. And then it can be seen as, being produced locally, which is really wonderful, whatever country you're in. So there is a combination of donated and items that are for sale. In every country that we work in, there are people that can pay for them. And so in those situations, they are able to buy them, and other people can receive them donated.
So the idea that you are able to make this work through a like and I'm zeroing in on the story of Alice, right? Becoming an activist. There are social enterprise elements to what you're doing. You know, it's heartbreaking to hear, that she didn't know what was happening. It was such a difficult experience for her. Um, but now she's made such a difference in the lives of so many others. How incredibly powerful that is. How do you help the people who are engaged in the work of Days for Girls learn to tell their stories so that they can have the kind of impact or anywhere close to the kind of impact that Alice has had?
It's a really good question. We honestly haven't had to do a ton of work with that. I'll just be honest. They are so passionate. I mean, it's just that if you ever get the chance to hear Alice speak, I mean, I wouldn't even approach trying to tell her how to do it, because she is just, it comes out of her. I think that, sharing a personal, heartfelt experience, there's nothing like that. Um, and also now feeling the passion. I actually had the opportunity probably 2 years ago. I was in Kenya and we did a gathering of all of our social enterprise leaders in Kenya. They all gathered to the same place so we could meet with them and do some training. And I honestly was a little, I do this work all the time, but I'll just say that I was so impacted literally by the energy in that room as them telling their stories, and their apps. I mean, like, pound the table, like, this will not happen to girls in our communities anymore. I like the amount of that coming. I was sitting at the front of the room and it was overwhelming. And I sat there thinking, the solution is exactly in the hands that it needs to. This is who needs to be leading this. I just need to get out of their way. And because there's nobody that cares for their own people like they do, and that they intimately understand the challenges that these girls are experiencing. But so, yeah.
Wonderful. Two more questions for you. So the Days for Girls product, the kit, you mentioned it's about $15 to make. I've seen similar programs out there, and they identify lower costs. I'm guessing that you are working into this kit a number of pieces that make it a better ROI over time. Could you explain that in a little more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that $15 kit is kind of our deluxe full version. It's the one that our volunteers exclusively make and send for disaster and refugee response. But we also do have multiple variations of that kit so that we can hit different price points. That kit includes 2 pairs of underwear, which is typically very valued by the people in these communities that don't have access to that. That actually ends up being something that they are so excited to get. We include, it's a little bit tricky to explain it, but we have 2 parts of our product that go interchangeably. Our product is actually able to manage flow very effectively because people can layer 1, 2, or 3 of the liners in the shield. So on a light day, they can have less, heavier day, they can have more. So we have 2 shields and 8 liners, which is bigger than if you're doing apples to apples. Some of the other products, they're getting more for that. And then there is a washcloth, a carry pouch that they can put the items in while they're dirty, when they're out and about at school, and then come home, rinse out and get ready to wash. A bar of soap, and a travel size bar of soap. So yeah, it's a really beautiful combination to fully take care of this issue. And also we recognize that it is a little bit more on the expensive side, and we're working really hard to get those prices down. Again, when I was talking about export fees and import fees and tax exemptions, those are all, the supply chain is a really big piece of this.
We always like to follow up with more questions after the recording finishes, and I've got a string of those, but I do want to finish our time in the recording with this question, which is, as people watch this and they say, I want to help. What are options for them? What are the kind of things that they can do to be a part of what Days for Girls does?
I love that question. Thank you for asking it. So I think the first thing would be to just get a little more information. You can visit our website at daysforgirls.org. It has a lot of information, different blog posts, stories, data, just to become a little more educated on the issue. You could also get involved as a volunteer. We have 12,000 volunteers throughout several different countries, and there's ways to get involved with a local chapter or team on our website. You can also donate. I feel like Days for Girls is in an interesting position. Since 2008, we've been really perfecting and our model, and we have now the data. This is a proven model now. What we need now is to be able to have resources to scale this. We have a monthly donor program that we're putting out. And so for $15 a month, you can reach one girl. Every month it's part of the back to school program. And so yeah, you could consider becoming a monthly donor or making a larger investment or asking, other Rotarians to come in with you. That really just allows us to reach more people. I think that those are some of the big things. Terry Lynn, not to put you on the spot, but do you have any other suggestions that I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's perfect. And if you go on the website, you can find a chapter or team close to you. And some people I'll get the men in my Rotary Club provide two things, soap and panties. And I've heard when a new member came in recently, somebody turned to him and said, "Oh, watch out for Terry Lynn. She'll have you buying panties in no time." And so that's the sort of thing. But you can do that. You can make donations of fabric if you have it. There are restrictions. We're very careful about the sort of things that we have, but that sort of thing you can certainly do. You can find someone local, and of course money always makes a difference.
Well said. Thanks, Terry Lynn.
Well, wonderful. So just to everyone who is taking this in, before we hand it back to our speaker for the final word, I want to thank you for taking your time to catch the stories that we share. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there, and it helps to remember that there are a lot of people doing a lot of wonderful things to make the lives of others better. You just sometimes have to work a bit to find those stories. At Rotary.cool, you can find them on a weekly basis. If you are specifically interested in the links that we've talked about with Days for Girls, after you finish watching or listening to this, go back to the page and you'll find those links. We have those right there for you to follow. If you are visiting us, please leave a message on our page. So it might be on the YouTube page, it might be on the podcast page, and it might be on our SiliconValleyRotary.com page. There is a discuss section where you can leave it during the week that this is our program for the meeting, and we would love to hear from you. It is one of the ways in an online, asynchronous, and geographically distributed club we share thoughts with each other. And so you are very welcome to do that. Tiffany, as we always like to do, we hand it back to the speaker for the final word. What would you like for people to have clearly in mind as they finish this recording?
Thank you for that. I just wanted to bring it back to kind of what got me involved in Days for Girls. I have a background in international development and was literally shocked when I personally heard this information. And one thing that I was really struck by was that there's all these aspects of international development that I care deeply about, whether it's education or gender-based violence or economic empowerment or access to food and water. There's all these things that really matter in international development. What I was really struck by when I learned about menstrual health and menstrual inequity was that for any of those issues that impact women, if you're not addressing menstrual health, there is an invisible door barrier right before you get there that needs to be addressed, or women and girls will not make the progress in those different categories that they need to without addressing this. And it's oftentimes an invisible barrier, but it's not invisible anymore. I want to say thank you to all of you for this opportunity and participating in great questions. And I just want to reiterate that this is something that we can tackle in our lifetime. By many people deciding that we're just going to end this will end in our lifetime. And I want to reiterate that the price of a pad isn't much, but the equity that it provides is priceless.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Terry Lynn. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week.